as a fitness maniac obsessed with protein. Being reborn in a world full of protein sounded like pure happiness. Liu Hanrui used to be a deadlift athlete with nothing but muscles in his head. At just 17, he challenged himself to lift 10 tons, just as he was about to become the strongest being on Earth, surpassing all humans. The muscles inside his body suddenly tore apart. His vision went dark, and his consciousness began to fade. And he thought that if he had more muscles, none of this would be happening. When a mechanical voice suddenly appeared beside his ear, top-tier skill acquired, infinite muscle growth, rare skill acquired, battle-ready physique, special skill acquired, Hawkeye plus passive skill, unshaken. Liu Hanrui grew annoyed, wondering who kept whispering in his ear when he should be picking up his boiled chicken breast takeout. After he finally saw his surroundings clearly, he jolted upright, confused because he had clearly been doing a deadlift challenge just moments ago. Then the passive skill Unshaken activated, and with the vast grassland and massive flock of chickens before him, he finally understood what had happened. He must have eaten too much chicken breast and ended up in a hell filled with the grudges of chickens, which explained why so many chickens were attacking him. Liu Hanrui angrily threw something at the stupid chicken that dared provoke him. He was already irritated enough from not being able to replenish his protein when a voice chimed, Hawkeye activated, target detected, cluck chicken, protein content, 68 kilograms. He was shocked that the voice could even tell him the protein content, thinking it might be help sent from the ancestor of fitness. So he decided to accept it respectfully and enjoy the meal. And soon the clucked chicken was reduced to nothing but bones, and he let out a satisfied burp. But he had been wondering whether his arms were always this thin, and his pectorals seemed smaller too. And even the part of his back he could only reach back in kindergarten was now easy to touch. Liu Hanrui felt something was wrong, refusing to believe that the fruits of his hard work had simply vanished. But when he saw his reflection in the water, he completely broke down, screaming hysterically, demanding to know where his muscles had gone. And at this point, the place he was in no longer mattered to him, because he had to get rid of his anchovy-like body and reclaim a tall, muscular physique. So he pulled a thick tree out of the ground with all his strength, then carried the whole log onto his shoulder, declaring that he would start doing log squats, believing that hard work would never betray him. And to increase muscular endurance, he began doing jump squats as well. Yet after 3 months of nonstop training, hard work still betrayed him because his muscles did not grow at all. Though fortunately, the protein in this world was more than enough. So he decided to restart as a beginner fitness trainee, but just then, a huge head appeared behind him, and when he turned around, he was completely stunned because an enormous clucked chicken was standing there, and he could not understand why this world insisted on treating him this way. He only wanted to build strong muscles. Was that really such a luxurious dream? The giant clucked chicken's attacks were fast and powerful, and he feared he would die instantly if he took even one punch. But compared to the chicken's attacks, Liu Hanrui cared far more about how amazing that creature's pectorals looked. He wondered if flapping wings helped train the chest muscles, and thought he should grow a cable machine to do chest fly exercises. He originally believed his muscles wouldn't grow because his strength wasn't enough, and he regretted forgetting to train the small muscle groups properly. Then the Hawkeye skill activated again, revealing that the giant clucked chicken was named Kuin Chicken, with a protein content of 12,000 kilograms. The voice notified him that eating Kuin Chicken's breast meat would grant the rare skill Amazing Muscle Recovery. Upon hearing that, he suddenly turned and faced Kuin Chicken head-on. Although everyone thought muscles were built during exercise, he knew that exercise actually damaged muscle fibers. And in that state, muscle function temporarily decreased and strength dropped. But after proper nutrition and rest, the damaged fibers grew stronger than before. This was known as super recovery. Therefore, the shorter the recovery time, the faster the muscle growth, which meant he could escape his anchovy-like skinny body sooner. And for that goal, he was even willing to risk his own life. Because to sculpt pectorals as solid as a statue, one had to repeat the same movement billions of times. The voice warned, power detected, exceeding battle-ready physique. So, the battle-ready physique skill was disabled, and he gained the special skill bone reinforcement. He then used one of his usual gym techniques on Kuin Chicken, called dumbbell row. And this time, it was Kuin Chicken's turn to be confused. The next second, its head exploded, and the voice warned that his muscle tolerance had been damaged. And to restore muscular endurance, battle-ready physique needed to be reactivated. But he didn't care at all whether that voice wanted to restart the skill. He only knew that he would definitely have enough chicken breast to eat today. After eating the chicken breast, he successfully gained the rare skill, amazing muscle recovery. Yet he still had no idea where this place was or what kinds of creatures lived here. And not far away, 3 pairs of eyes were staring hungrily at him, their mouths watering uncontrollably. Because these humanoid monsters hadn't smelled meat in a long time. They wondered whether the one who defeated Kuin Chicken might actually be that human-looking monster. And though afraid, they still wanted to approach and ask. He froze while gnawing on the chicken breast, curious about who these hopeful-eyed beings were. The monsters introduced themselves as ghouls from Mine, and then Hawkeye activated, showing that a ghoul contained only 6 kilograms of protein. He felt embarrassed and told the ancestor of fitness in his heart that he would never treat people as food. The ghouls said they were looking for the one who defeated Kuin Chicken. He didn't expect Kuin Chicken to have an owner, and awkwardly admitted that he was the one who killed it. And upon hearing that, the 3 ghouls cheered, because after the strongest Kuin Chicken of Mine died, all the races began fighting for territory. But Lu Hanrei wasn't listening to the ghouls at all. He was wondering whether such thin legs would shatter with just one punch. Suddenly, a ghoul bowed, asking the great slayer of Kuin Chicken for help. He thought for a moment and asked them to repeat what they said, because he didn't hear a single clear word. The ghoul was confused, saying he had already repeated it 9 times. He laughed awkwardly, saying they had to say it 10 times for it to count as one set, but the ghoul didn't understand what a set meant. He seriously explained that if you want to succeed at something, you must attempt it 10 times. The ghouls had absolutely no idea what that meant. Seeing he didn't seem willing to help, they sensibly stood up to leave. He apologized, saying he had been too busy training his muscles to spare time, and the ghouls understood. But he told them to take some chicken breast with them, since he couldn't finish it alone. Hearing that, the ghouls happily thanked him. But just as one of them tried to lift the chicken breast, he noticed something was wrong, because if the ghoul lifted it with that posture, he would definitely hurt his lower back on the way home. Realizing this, he quickly stopped the ghoul and began passionately lecturing him about all the dangers of deadlifting with bad form. You almost said goodbye to your spine just now. The ghoul had no idea what he did wrong, but still apologized sincerely. Then Lu Hanrei suddenly realized that these ghouls probably didn't even know what a deadlift was. And indeed, they had never heard the word before. He finally understood why their bodies were so skinny. He recalled something his master told him back in elementary school. When you can teach others, it means you have truly learned it. So when you hit a bottleneck in training, try teaching someone else, and you will break through faster. The 3 ghouls were struggling to carry the chicken breast, when suddenly the weight in their hands became lighter. He told them that once he finished eating, he would follow them to their village. But only tomorrow, because if he didn't sleep now, he feared his muscles would shrink. The next day, he arrived at the ghoul village, and the Ghoul King welcomed him, calling him Great Warrior. Hawkeye was about to announce the Ghoul King's protein content, but Lu Hanrei stopped it. He wondered if the Ghoul King was like some sort of native chieftain. Judging from those thin limbs and that toad-like swollen belly, he knew the Ghoul King lacked exercise and must love drinking and overeating. The Ghoul King ordered his underlings to bring back all the remaining chicken breast, and Lu Hanrei noted that such weak bodies would take a long time to carry it. The Ghoul King laughed loudly, asking whether he was worried about those servants. Lu Hanrei instantly felt annoyed. The Ghoul King said that ghouls were the weakest race in Mine, terrible in close combat, and aside from himself, no one could use skills, surviving only by eating rotten corpses. Lu Hanrei interrupted, asking what a skill even was. The Ghoul King thought he was joking, but Lu Hanrei clarified he was not. The king snorted in amusement. then coldly ordered the others to drag in the 3 ghouls who brought him back. The 3 bound ghouls were confused as to why the prince suddenly summoned them. The king told others to bring weapons and declared coldly that absolute loyalty was required toward those stronger than them, a rule passed down in their race since ancient times. But they had brought back a fake who only pretended to defeat Kuan Chicken and had dared lie to him. And such deception must be paid for with their lives. The king roared, "Skill, heavy shield X2," and swung the wooden club down at them. Lu Hanrei wondered what he was saying. Clearly he had time to train, yet he wasted it bullying the weak. Was this a village tradition? The king was shocked, insisting he had definitely applied force a moment ago. Yet this kid caught the strike with his bare hands. The king decided to show off even more today. His heavy shield skill could increase weapon weight by 2 to 10 times and boost his strength up to 4-fold. Hearing that, Lu Hanrei was stunned. That skill was totally unfair. The king multiplied the 32-kilogram club by 4 and doubled the striking force as well. But in the ghoul's horrified eyes, Lu Hanrei shattered the club with a single blow. The skill did startle him a bit, but what surprised him more was the king's personality. He then used another one of his common gym movements, grabbing the king by the neck with a dumbbell front raise posture, demanding whether he was really strong enough to toy with others' lives. "What's your total on the big 3 lifts anyway, to act this arrogant?" The king asked in confusion whether big 3 meant punching each other 3 times. Lu Hanrei explained that the big 3 were the most important muscle-building exercises: bench press, squat, and deadlift. Then he turned to the other ghouls and asked if they had never heard of them. Seeing them all nod, Lu Hanrei decided to start a strength contest. Moments later, the Ghoul King asked him whether he only needed to lift this object. They agreed that if Lu Hanrei lost, he would become the Ghoul King's subordinate. He kindly reminded the king to control his abdominal pressure, or else his lower back would break. But the king thought maliciously that this idiot would never guess heavy shield could be used in reverse. So he used heavy shield times 1/4 and instantly lifted the 200-kilogram barbell with ease. Lu Hanrei praised him, saying he should use a bit more stored power next time. He told the other ghouls to watch carefully, because if he won, they would have to learn deadlifting too. Deadlift was a full-body exercise that tested maximal human strength. Although it looked like a back-driven movement, the lower body contributed the most force. Because of injury risks, he always warmed up his hip joints to ensure proper form. The first step of a deadlift was setting the feet shoulder-width apart. The second step was puffing the chest and stabilizing the torso using the back, core, and glutes. The third step was keeping the bar close and pulling it up along the shins to the thighs using force from the feet, lower body, and whole body in sequence. The fourth step was lifting it to knee height, and at that moment, the king exposed a wicked grin, secretly activating heavy shield times 4 on the barbell. As Lu Hanrei exploded with power, the barbell vanished, having been flung straight into the sky. The ghouls stared in shock, while he sighed, realizing he failed to control his strength. It seemed he would need to make another barbell. At that moment, all the ghouls begged the new king to take them in, and so Lu Hanrei ascended as the new Ghoul King. The former king, defeated in the 3 generals match, obeyed him completely. During their conversation, he learned this place was entirely different from his original world. Although legends say someone once returned to the original world, he didn't want to go back with an anchovy body, so he postponed the idea. In the world of Rishia, survival of the fittest was deeply ingrained, and that was why the former king swore loyalty to him. He brought Lu Hanrei to the warriors' training grounds, although one could guess just by looking at their bodies. Seeing the empty training ground, he couldn't help asking the former king what exactly they had trained. The former king apologized, saying he lacked knowledge. But even without elite coaches, equipment could be self-made, and he would still train the ghouls. He shouted for all ghouls to gather and form 5 lines. He had heard that ghouls were looked down on and forced to live off leftovers from other monsters. He asked what weak ghouls truly needed: organization, scouting skills, speed? No, what they needed was strong bodies. He decided to shape them into proper soldiers within 3 months. The ghouls wondered if such a short time was enough. but were excited at the thought of no longer being despised. Seeing their motivation, he was satisfied. He ordered everyone to do push-ups. The ghouls were confused about what push-up meant. He demonstrated by lying down and instructing them to follow. The ghouls flopped awkwardly to the ground with crooked posture. His eyes burned with passion. Push-ups were only the warm-up. He ordered everyone to complete 100 push-ups. 3 hours later, all the ghouls were stunned. They lay collapsed on the ground, utterly exhausted. At this moment, Lu Hanrate was doing push-ups with a giant boulder on his back. He had now reached 24,800 reps. The former ghoul king, who was adding weight for him, reminded him that all ghouls had already collapsed. So he told them to do another 100 push-ups before eating. The ghouls had already done 700 reps and felt they might die if they continued. They even felt things were better back when ghouls themselves were the leaders. They believed doing this much was already impressive. With their whole bodies aching, they decided they would sleep for an entire week starting tomorrow. After hearing their complaints, he ordered all ghouls to stand up. Seeing the session finally end, they were about to eat, when Lu Hanrate roared at them. "You're weak because your mentality is weak. Pretending everything is fine when being looked down on is unacceptable. In the wilderness, being too weak means death. Keep living like cowards then. When your friends, partners, and families die, will you still run away? Anyone like that can get out." He refused to let such trash remain, but those who stayed and continued their push-ups, he would train them to build bodies strong enough to protect their loved ones. Someone once asked who the best fitness coach is. Is it the one who knows the most about muscles or the one who trained himself to the peak? Anyone can do those things. Such people can create amazing results. But they're not the best coaches. The best coach is the one who can ignite the will to train in someone who has none. Lu Hanrate roared, pushing himself up with a do-or-die resolve, lifting the weak version of his former self. Protect your parents and your loved ones. You can do it. For the revival of the tribe and for a brand new self. The skinny ghouls broke their limits again and again, doing push-up after push-up. Their morale soared, and they never complained again. All thanks to Lu Hanrate's correct training plan. Before long, his Hawkeye skill rose from level 1 to level 2. 3 months later, a group of lizard men walked through the dense forest. Scouts confirmed that the ghoul village was ahead. This place would become the lizardmen's first colony. Observing from above, Lu Hanrate marveled at their extremely developed osteomuscles. He shouted, "Bench press squad, chest up, inhale and engage the abdomen. Then activate your breaker muscles. Aim at the enemy and push the giant boulder forward." The lizardmen never expected such an ambush. Their leader broke into a cold sweat, shocked at who did this. Lu Hanrate laughed. Who else could it be? Of course, it was the reborn ghoul monsters who shed the title of the weakest. The lizardmen were crushed instantly. Their leader knew they would be wiped out if this continued. But if they could capture the enemy leader, things would change. Spotting that overwhelming charisma and commanding presence, the lizardman leader immediately knew that must be the boss here. He roared at the ghoul king, telling him to stop hiding behind his underlings and come out to face him one-on-one. The former ghoul king asked Lord Lu how he planned to deal with this challenge. At that moment, Lu Hanrate fell into a memory. When he was little, he once raised an iguana, a rare species known as the bay croc. It would drool while begging him to play with it, and the bay croc's bite force reached PSI 7700, even exceeding 2 tons. Yet such an overwhelming bite force still could not pierce his well-trained muscles. He had said before what happens when a pet doesn't behave. The bay croc instantly broke into a cold sweat, and at that moment he came up with an idea. His figure vanished from his original spot in an instant. The lizardman leader was still shouting at the former ghoul king when Lu Hanrate grabbed him. He planned to flip the lizardman onto his back. Then he remembered the next step. The two must stare directly into each other's eyes, because he had read in books that when animals were young, one must implant the idea, "I am stronger than you," deep in their minds. So he repeatedly muttered to the lizardman leader, "I am stronger than you." The lizardman roared that he could be killed, but never humiliated. But the next second, faced with Lu Hanrate's overwhelming pressure, the lizardman leader immediately submitted. He He finally accepted defeat and surrendered. Lu Hanrei was thrilled. What the book taught was completely correct. Meanwhile, not far from Ali Mine, in White Country of Willing Island, the Lord of White Country felt honored for nurturing such talented individuals. He ordered them to carry out a Level 2 mission: investigate the disappearance of the chicken snake. The three shouted in unison that they obeyed the Count's orders. After they left, the Count asked the general if such an important task could really be entrusted to these soldier rookies. The general told him not to worry. Those soldiers were young, but already famous geniuses. Raphael mastered elegant swordsmanship that toyed with enemies. Handard's swordsmanship was wild, and with his blunt force sword and brute strength, he could shatter weapons. Together, even dragons wouldn't dare show up. They were an unbeatable combination. The Count then asked if the simple-looking soldier in the back was also powerful. The general sighed, saying that soldier had no talent for swordsmanship. The only reason he was here was because the three had been friends since childhood, and the general liked the other two geniuses. Soon the three entered the dense forest. From high above, a goblin lay in ambush, aiming his arrow at Raphael. But the next moment, Raphael vanished from his spot and appeared behind the goblin, ending him with a single strike. Other goblins emerged at the same time. Handard killed several with each swing. Raphael told him to secure Brolog's safety first. Brolog's top priority was to protect himself. But moments later, due to carelessness, a goblin got close to Brolog. The other two asked if he was hurt. Facing Raphael's scolding, Handard felt ashamed. Brolog didn't understand why. Even though they trained together, he alone was so weak. He didn't know how someone with zero sword talent could become strong. Meanwhile, in the Ghoul village, Lu Hanrei was training all the lizard men, while their leader was nearly driven insane. As the tormented lizard men left, he politely told them they could come back if they wanted more training, and the Ghoul athletes welcomed them as well. The lizard men thought they would rather starve than return. He himself had been shocked when he first saw the Ghoul athletes. Normally, training damages muscle fibers, which grow stronger during recovery. When central nervous fatigue accumulates, performance drops, so deloading is needed. By week 9, the ghouls also felt their progress slowing. He originally thought they had reached the time for deload training and wanted to give them a day off. But the next day, something miraculous happened. The ghouls grew taller and stronger overnight. Hawkeye showed they had evolved into ghoul athletes with 8% body fat. He then realized ghoul athletes might not need deload training. With the lizard men gone, he prepared to take everyone to eat. The ghoul athletes asked if they could hunt by themselves today. Since ordinary ghouls had never defeated the cluck chicken before and had been eating his hunted food, but now that they had chest muscles, they wanted to defeat the cluck chicken. Hearing this, he felt satisfied because this meant he would have more time to train. Soon, the ghoul athletes set out fully prepared, but they were in agony. Why did they have to move in such a posture? Yet Lu Hanrei was very satisfied with their lunge stance. But once their strength loosened, their backs would bend and the posture would collapse. Getting injured like this was because they lacked strong and flexible cartilage support. Lu Hanrei thought that if only someone like his master, whose cartilage was incredibly strong, were nearby. At night, a lone figure continued swinging his sword. Since he had allowed a goblin to approach Brolog, Raphael and Handard kept apologizing to him. Brolog understood it was because he was too weak that he couldn't earn their trust. So he vowed to become stronger, practicing harder even when others rested. Raphael suddenly appeared, instructing him to grip his thumb tighter and imagine cutting through the wind. Brolog felt embarrassed and asked if he had woken him up. Raphael smiled, saying he wanted his precious friend to grow stronger. So even though Brolog always trained secretly at night, he had pretended not to notice. Then a rough voice echoed, Handard demanding what the two were doing behind his back. Brolog explained they weren't doing anything, just practicing, when suddenly a hand covered his mouth. Raphael questioned how the man who put Brolog in danger even had the face to show up here. Handard replied in a low voice that if they didn't rest now, their bodies would react slower tomorrow. He said Brolog needed enough sleep, so his skin would become whiter and softer. Brolog felt troubled. He didn't understand why friends would fight over such things. Just then, a strange noise came from the forest. The three quickly prepared for battle. It was a group of lizard men running toward them. The lizard men froze for a moment when they saw three humans. Their leader, drenched in sweat, roared, "Don't mind them. The ones behind are catching up." It turned out they were also fleeing for their lives, with a massive dark crowd behind them. Those were the former rulers of this place, the clucked chickens. And even these clucked chickens were running in panic, because behind them was a group of demons craving protein. And without Lu Hanrei realizing it, a new energy pyramid was quietly being born. Not long ago, Lu Hanrei took the ghoul athletes to hunt clucked chickens. But he had some doubts. Could they really do it? The clucked chickens' chest muscles seemed much bigger than theirs, and the ghoul athletes suspected they were just dead muscles. Lu Hanrei snapped. "Where did you learn such rude words?" At that moment, a clucked chicken staggered while chasing a bug, but two trees blocked its body. The clucked chicken roared angrily and shook hard, and the two trees snapped under the enormous pressure. The clucked chicken successfully ate the bug. Seeing the scene, the ghoul athletes fell into thought. One of them turned to a big tree and stood between the trunks. He exerted his strength with both arms, but the trees only shook slightly. Lu Hanrei told him to rest for 3 minutes and try again. After resting, the ghoul athlete challenged it again. This time he was fully prepared, using every ounce of strength he had. But Lu Hanrei told the exhausted athlete to stop and come back. Lu Hanrei couldn't understand. Bench press is an efficient multi-joint exercise, and various push-up variations also train deep muscles. So what exactly was still lacking? Then Lu Hanrei noticed the clucked chickens rubbing against each other. Their wings were interlocked, as if they were doing resistance against each other. Lu Hanrei finally understood. Because the ghoul athlete's training kept improving, he had overlooked this. The ghoul athlete wondered if his posture was wrong, stimulating the wrong muscle group. Lu Hanrei told him that wasn't the issue. It was because their muscles had gotten used to his training program, so they needed to switch routines immediately. Then Lu Hanrei ordered the ghoul athletes to line up in 5 rows. Behind me is the cable machine. He built it to add variation to their accustomed training plan. Before starting, he asked everyone to clap 3 times. From now on, to train the inner chest and defeat the clucked chickens, they would begin cable fly. The ghoul athletes praised him, saying their boss always solved their problems. Lord Lu is truly the best. Lu Hanrei told them to quiet down, so he could explain first. Cable fly effectively stimulates the inner chest and makes the chest shape more defined. The movement must be done correctly to see results and is slightly difficult for beginners. Step 1 was leaning the upper body forward with slightly bent knees. Step 2 was keeping the arms slightly bent and standing firm to stabilize the torso. Step 3 was pulling the cables toward the center, pushing the chest out slightly, and making wing-like motions to cross forward. During training, the cable height and torso angle could be adjusted to target different small muscle groups, but the core must stay stable. After explaining, he told them to ask if they didn't understand any detail. He set up several stations for them to try. The ghoul athletes immediately fought to be first. They wanted their chest muscles to explode today. Lu Hanrei always found beginners adorable. After a few days of training, their chests did become noticeably larger. The clucked chickens stared blankly at them. Those perfect chest muscles made the clucked chickens' hearts race, and golden light began to flash around them. Lu Hanrei stared in confusion at the change, as more golden light flowed into their bodies. Their feathers became even more vibrant. Lu Hanrei wondered, why were the clucked chickens' chests getting even bigger again? The ghoul athletes told Lord Lu not to worry. They planned to take down all the clucked chickens. The 2 different species charged at each other. At that moment, Lu Hanrei's hawk eye activated again, and the clucked chicken's name changed to Gookers. They slapped the ghoul athletes flying with a single hit. It turned out that when a clucked chicken's chest grows bigger, the individual also evolves. If they wanted to stop a clucked chicken from evolving into Gookers, they had to avoid letting its chest grow too big. Meanwhile, the old ghoul king had just woken up, looking like a lonely old widower. But he quite enjoyed this sense of freedom. Suddenly, his stomach growled loudly. He complained that Lord Lu was perfect except for his incompatible eating habits. During this time, the old Ghoul King had learned to cook fried cluck chicken skin, because Lu Hanrei never ate chicken skin. So this delicious food could only be enjoyed by the old Ghoul King. In the forest, the ghoul athletes were all knocked back by the Gookers. They wondered why. Even though they trained their inner chest and deep muscles exactly as Lord Lu instructed, they still couldn't win. The ghoul athletes suspected their form must be wrong. Then one shouted that none of them were right. There must be a fundamental problem to solve. Lu Hanrei explained the reason. The effort you put in, the duration and density of training, are nowhere near what those cluck chickens accumulated through a lifetime. After only a few days of intense training, do you expect to beat them? That would be unfair to them. The ghoul athletes became discouraged. Looks like that handsome chest muscle can't be trained in just 1 or 2 days. But Lu Hanrei told them there was still a way to win. Think carefully about how you got here. During the weighted walk, under his guidance, they maintained perfect lunge form. They were exhausted, but their growing willpower kept them moving. Your mental state did improve, but you still need consistent training. Just because you got a bit stronger doesn't mean you've escaped weakness. You must become stronger to shake off the title of the weakest. Lu Hanrei told them that back on Earth, among lifters who could lift 500 kilograms, that was the minimum requirement. That strong foundation was why they could draw out power. And so you must train your basics no matter how tired you are. Encouraged by Lu Hanrei, the ghoul athletes trained tirelessly. Then the ghouls felt it, strength rising from the ground through their bodies. Lu Hanrei was pleased. He finally understood. Even if his chest couldn't beat theirs, adding strong legs and glutes might change the result. The ghoul athletes engaged their lower body power and charged at Gookers. Lu Hanrei knew they had trained well recently, so it was time to show everyone the power of effort. Gookers threw out a powerful slap, sending them flying again. Seeing them knocked away, Lu Hanrei was confused. Suddenly he realized they climbed here using lunges the whole way. Their legs must be jelly by now. The ghoul athletes flying in midair thought, I realized it way too late. The victorious Gookers proudly lifted its chicken head. At that moment, they noticed there was still one person standing. The Gookers immediately charged toward Lu Hanrei. Lu Hanrei stood firmly in place. He raised his hand and used a one-arm dumbbell row on the Gookers. In that instant, the Gookers saw its entire life flash before its eyes, and the final image froze on the hand of a human. Then the Gookers turned into a pot of delicious chicken soup. Lu Hanrei told everyone not to blame themselves. Failure is an important part of growth. Today, they should replenish protein well. Tomorrow, the ghoul athletes would catch them personally. Lu Hanrei lifted the chicken breast in his hand, wishing everyone could grow bigger and stronger. Then he told the one who ate the drumstick to finish 300 push-ups before coming back. The next day, Lu Hanrei reminded the ghoul athletes to remember what he taught today and to stay safe while hunting. The ghoul athletes wondered if Lord Lu wasn't going with them. Lu Hanrei planned to finish his own training first before joining them, because he believed completing daily training was more important than a fight. Lu Hanrei wished them success in building muscle. The only downside was that the resistance band was still too light. Had he known earlier, he would have called the old Ghoul King over as well. Today, the ghoul athlete's goal was to work together and catch 50 cluck chickens. To be safe, they divided into 3 teams and would use chest muscles to signal danger. After the discussion, the joyful and chaotic days of the fitness newbies officially began. Meanwhile, the 3 swordsmen finally found the long-dead Kuan chicken skeleton. Without seeing the skull, Hander guessed the Kuan chicken was killed instantly by a powerful magic. Brolog wondered if it was a fatal strike even the Kuan chicken couldn't endure. Wouldn't that be on the same level as the kingdom's grand mage? Add-in, was this really something they could intervene in? Raphael and Hander said in unison, "You don't need to worry, they won't let you get hurt." At that moment, the ground suddenly began to shake. The 3 swordsmen quickly drew their blades, preparing for battle. A group of cluck chickens popped out, followed immediately by a group of ghoul athletes. They also spotted the humans. Seeing unknown creatures, Raphael and Hander hurried to shield Brolog. Brolog felt annoyed and wanted them to stay farther away. He didn't need this. The ghoul athletes also stopped because they'd heard humans were a cruel, bloodthirsty race, and they didn't know how these humans would act. Rushing into a fight now was far too dangerous. The ghoul athletes' chest muscles began to vibrate. Brolog wondered what kind of trick they were trying to pull. In reality, the ghoul athletes were trying to call the other two teams to reduce risk. Their chest muscles could resonate with teammates to send a gathering signal. But at the same time, the cluck chicken's chest muscles also grew larger. The cluck chickens evolved once again into gookers. Brolog knew the gooker's combat strength could rival a two-legged dragon. They charged straight toward the ghoul athletes. The athletes, whose chests were still vibrating, felt ashamed. They shouldn't have stopped just now. At that moment, the captains of the other two teams arrived. They smiled confidently, saying they weren't late. The ghoul athletes were ready. This move was something they learned from Lu Hanrate. Back then, he was straining to push a barbell, and Lu Hanrate reminded him that his form was off. When you can't train with proper form, getting help from someone stronger is the right choice. But if you want to safely feel your own strength from time to time, what should you do? This was the ghoul athlete's bodybuilding secret, called bench press spotting. Don't worry about what's behind you. Just strike forward. Use every last muscle fiber at the end of the range. And let the little gookers feel the power of their resonating giant chest muscles. The little gookers fell into disadvantage for the moment. Just as the athletes were excited that the move was working, an accident occurred. One athlete became isolated. He murmured that even though he couldn't find someone to spot him, he still appreciated everyone's care during this time. His teammate shouted in grief, "No, 0.3 seconds is the time humans need to judge friendliness or hostility when meeting someone." From their first meeting until now, it had been a total of 486 seconds. This was the moment the three swordsmen fully felt the resonance deep inside the ghoul athlete's chest muscles, completely sensing that inner echo. But unfortunately, that resonance also spread into the gookers' chests, and it evolved again. The three swordsmen had no idea what this creature was. Its size was already close to that of a dragon. Legend says that true dragons existed in ancient times, and dragons back then were obsessed with honor to prevent their descendants from surpassing them. They made an extreme choice, splitting their power into two lines, forming what is now known as the Dragon Clan and the Kuan chicken family. Although the creature before them wasn't a true dragon, its massive size made Handard and Raphael excited. He was sure this would finally earn their master's approval. At this moment, Lu Hanrate felt troubled. Although newbie bodies bulk up fast during the welfare period, compared to the ghoul athletes, his own chest mass really felt a bit lacking. But even so, Lu Hanrate still thought those newbies were adorable, training so earnestly. 3 months had passed. At first, they were just sobbing sardines, and even needed step-by-step guidance to move. Even when they had thoughts of giving up, it faded instantly. They endured with willpower until now, and not a single one quit. Clearly the ones getting stronger were those brats. Yet Lu Hanrate felt genuinely happy. Today I especially missed my master's assistance. Suddenly Lu Hanrate remembered his master disappeared at about his age 2, and a thought burst into his mind. At that moment, a ghoul athlete rushed over to find Lu Darren. He explained their current situation. If this continued, everyone might die. Lu Hanrate powered his legs and asked where everyone was, following the direction of the ghoul athlete's pointing finger. The fitness ancestor issued a warning. Detected power exceeding the combat-ready physique skill range. The system would now disable the combat-ready physique skill. Lu Hanrate burst into fury. Those damn chickens dared touch my kids. He began charging power in his legs, then explosively leapt up from where he stood. At the same time, Raphael and Handard were being beaten back step by step. Just as the giant gooker's attack was about to crash down, the ghoul athletes unleashed the final secret technique of their bodybuilding method. They formed a combined support formation, and the giant gooker's attack was successfully blocked by the ghoul athletes. But they couldn't hold much longer, wishing Lu Darren would arrive before they fell. Soon, the athletes' formation was shattered. Yet cruelly, tragedy always comes someday. the giant Gooker raised its arm toward them. Just as the attack was about to fall, a powerful strike descended from the sky and crushed the giant Gooker. The ghoul athletes cheered. Lu Daren really wasn't late. But when the dust cleared, it was actually the old Ghoul King standing there. The ghoul athletes were completely confused. Then a loud boom echoed from not far away. As the dust dispersed, Lu Hanrate's figure emerged from it. Turns out I jumped to the wrong place. A huge number of giant Gookers surrounded the old Ghoul King. Handard watched that long-range strike from before. Its power truly was impressive. A ghoul athlete told the three swordsmen to observe the situation. He is their ghoul village's second strongest, the old Ghoul King. The giant Gookers exchanged some kind of signals, then shifted their gaze toward the old Ghoul King. The old Ghoul King scoffed. Did you think he'd come here without preparing anything? The ghoul athletes excitedly told the old Ghoul King to smash those guys into the ground. The old Ghoul King roared that he had angered this whole bunch. So please, Lu Daren, hurry and come out to wipe them out. The ghoul athletes instantly felt embarrassed. The old Ghoul King was dumbfounded because he really hadn't prepared anything. 6 hours earlier, the old Ghoul King was puzzled why the hunt was taking so long. With their food running low, he planned to look for the ghoul athletes. Since the Kuan chicken was dead, the old Ghoul King figured there wouldn't be danger. But unexpectedly, something like this ended up happening. The old Ghoul King heard the ghoul athletes' cries. He believed only he and Lu Daren had the right to bully the ghoul athletes. No one else was qualified to touch their subordinates. The old Ghoul King didn't join the bodybuilding training like the others. But even so, his status never decreased. Not because his strength surpassed the trained ghoul athletes. And it wasn't because the law of the jungle had changed. The reason was only one. The old Ghoul King had to keep activating his skill just to adjust the plate weight Lu Daren required. And without realizing it, he had stacked his heavy shield skill all the way to max level. He first used heavy shield times 1/10 to lighten the giant rock, then lifted the rock and hurled it at the giant Gooker. After that, the old Ghoul King used heavy shield times 10 again, and the rock with 10 times weight successfully crushed the giant Gooker. But without prior preparation, this kind of attack could only be used once. Looking at the massive giant Gooker, the old Ghoul King felt they were doomed. Then he was slapped away by the giant Gooker. The ghoul athlete saw it and knew. This time they were really done for. Brolog apologized to the other two, saying he always rained on their jokes. Raphael and Handard seriously said they weren't joking. Brolog sighed. At the very end, they still wanted to tease him. He thought maybe after reincarnating into another world, he would still miss these moments. Spending this final moment with his friends, Brolog didn't feel lonely at all. The ghoul athletes also intended to use their very last muscle cell, working it with full force until squeezing out everything. They thanked Lu Daren for his guidance during this time, though the training was extremely harsh. It let everyone taste what true strength felt like. If there is another life, please train them again. The three swordsmen charged toward the flock together with the ghoul athletes. Meanwhile, Lu Hanrate silently watched the old Ghoul King who had been knocked all the way to him. He begged Lu Daren to save their subordinates. Lu Hanrate's chest muscles began to violently tremble. The fitness ancestor detected emotional overload in the calm under pressure skill and canceled its activation. Just as the ghoul athletes were ready to fight with their lives, the flock suddenly rushed past them toward another direction. Lu Hanrate's chest muscles were still trembling violently, and the flock, drawn by the resonance, all gathered here. They were confused, not knowing what was going on, while Lu Hanrate stared at the giant Gookers before him with burning anger. The fitness ancestor confirmed his intent. Commoner pressure would be suspended for 24 hours. Just moments ago, when the giant Gooker ran off into the distance, the ghouls immediately prepared to follow. The frequency of the chest vibration told them, Lu Daren must be here. Brolog, however, was confused. Who is Lu Daren? The squad leader leaned in to explain. He was their teacher and their captain, his muscle striations clearer than anyone's. Simply put, their new Ghoul King was Lu Daren. And on Lu Hanrate's side, the giant Gooker stared at his chest with burning hunger. The next moment, they launched their attack. Such perfect pectorals could only belong to their bodies. But Lu Hanrei simply tapped lightly, and the giant Gooker's body dented inward. The next second, it was sent flying straight into the sky. The entire flock was shocked. What kind of chest strength was this? The next moment, their gazes burned even hotter, as if they had already claimed Lu Hanrei's pectorals. Then their massive bodies vanished from sight. The next instant they appeared in the air, spinning violently. They had used a martial soul fusion technique. And then both of their giant claws stomped down at Lu Hanrei. Lu Hanrei was pressed into the ground by two giant Gookers. Did it work? The two monsters looked uncertainly, but the next instant they froze, because Lu Hanrei was holding up their giant claws with sheer force. The giant Gookers broke into cold sweat. What kind of divine strength was this? Just as Lu Hanrei was about to burst out of the ground, the giant Gookers suddenly roared, and several more giant Gookers extended their claws. Lu Hanrei was pressed underground again. Just as they thought they had succeeded, an explosion suddenly rang out, and Lu Hanrei blasted out, charging at one of the giant Gookers. The next instant, with a light kick, the giant Gooker fell and couldn't get back up. The remaining giant Gookers panicked. This human's chest was beyond anything they could covet. At this moment, Lu Hanrei's voice echoed. So the Cluck clan grows their muscles through chest formation. So he used the same chest formation to draw the giant Gookers' attention. Upon hearing this, the giant Gookers instantly broke into cold sweat, full of regret. This man wasn't just muscular. He actually had a frighteningly deep mind. But Lu Hanrei didn't want to waste any more time talking. He leaped straight into the air, driving his fist hard into the head of a giant Gooker. In an instant, the creature collapsed to the ground. At that moment, Lu Hanrei's muscles began swelling violently, and the next second, he brought his hands together and swung forward, sending countless giant Gookers flying straight into the sky, falling back down one after another. The giant Gookers stared at the man before them, their eyes filled with terror. If they had another chance, they would never provoke him again. Then Lu Hanrei suddenly lifted a tree beside him and leaped off the bodies of the giant Gookers, performing several spinning maneuvers in midair before unleashing his signature triceps overhead extension, slamming the wooden stake brutally into the crowd of giant Gookers, knocking yet another one unconscious. The scene happened to be witnessed by the ghoul athletes and the three swordsmen, their faces frozen in shock. Even dragon-like giant Gookers trembled before him. Was he actually some kind of demi-beast? Lu Hanrei's battle wasn't over yet, but inside he was growing anxious. He had used the super jump to rush here, and now his lower body was growing weak. If he gave up here, he wouldn't be able to face the old ghoul king who adjusted his training weights. With no choice left, he had to bet everything on one final move, to wipe out all the giant Gookers at once. He immediately commanded the fitness ancestor to release all restrictions, and shouted, "Bench press 1 RM. Warning, lower body can no longer support upper body muscle mass. Upper body must enter isolation mode immediately. Lower body cannot maintain stability. Muscle rupture imminent. Upper body must enter isolation mode immediately." Just as his muscles were about to collapse, countless hands appeared on his broad back. He turned around in surprise. Every ghoul athlete had arrived without him noticing, smiling at him. He had always supported them. Now it was their turn to support him. At that moment, Lu Hanrei smiled. Let the giant Gookers witness the strength of their united master and disciples. He swung his hand forward, and the giant Gookers collapsed instantly. After the battle, everyone fell to the ground exhausted, except Lu Hanrei, who smiled with satisfaction. Today's workout had been perfect. After Lu Hanrei's group finished dealing with the giant Gookers, he wore a broad smile. Revenge is done. Old Ghoul King, you can rest easy now. I'll miss you. Hearing that, the nearby ghouls whispered among themselves. To be honest, before Lord Lu Hanrei arrived, he was pretty vicious to us. But after submitting, he's been okay. Last time he even cooked Gugu chicken for me, right? From now on, we gotta take good care of his wife and daughters. Before their whispers ended, Lu Hanrei suddenly frowned. Without the old Ghoul King, who would adjust his training weights now, His gaze swept toward the ghouls chatting excitedly. The ones talking big just now instantly froze, trembling as they turned away, pretending they heard nothing. These ungrateful creatures. Lu Hanrei gritted his teeth. Just wait till we get back. See if I don't train you half. Just then, a figure plopped down beside him. Lu Hanrei stared, confused. Could a ghoul die and then become a ghost again? The old ghoul king awkwardly scratched his head. I'm not dead. I just left everything to Lord Lu Hanrei, so I went ahead and took a nap. His words made the group instantly erupt with joy. They launched toward him like cannonballs and crushed him into the ground the next second, making him howl in pain. Lu Hanrei couldn't help smiling too. Looks like he didn't need to worry about losing his weight adjuster anymore. The scene shifted to Wylan Island, White Nation. The three swordsmen had already reported all frontline events to the Count without missing a word. The Count frowned deeply. The ghouls themselves weren't much of a threat, but that demi-human was dangerous, defeating the Kuan chicken alone. And other hungry tribes lurked around the territory. This was trouble. He sighed heavily. He needed a plan to deal with that man. The young general beside him, confused, asked, "But where's Blog? Weren't you three so close you'd share the same diaper for a whole day?" The words hit the two like an arrow. Tears streamed down instantly. Blog was taken away by that demi-human. Earlier, Lu Hanrei had instantly recognized Blog as perfect material for training and insisted on taking him. The two naturally refused and attacked Lu Hanrei on the spot. But their attacks were like little girls punching. Han Dade's greatsword, which he was so proud of, was caught effortlessly by Lu Hanrei without even turning his head. We couldn't beat him. We could only watch Blog leave with him. Thinking about it made them cry even harder. "Master, please rescue Blog from that monster." The Count turned his head in shock. "Strength training. I know a little of it, but I've heard some say it's a type of dark magic. That soldier is pitiful. Yes, but we cannot start a war so casually." Then he looked at the general. "Your master is not someone who'd be swayed by personal feelings." But before he finished, a thunderous boom shook the ground. The general's aura flared like a blade, her eyes sharp as steel. "Dare to provoke me? All units, prepare for war." The Count weakly stretched out his hand. "General, please don't act out of emotion." "Emotion my ass," the general snapped. "Anyone who touches my disciple touches me. And touching me is crossing the line." The Count froze in the wind and quietly withdrew his hand. Without another word, the general turned and ordered the two to follow her toward Ali Mine. Today, she would straighten out the discipline there. Meanwhile, at the Ghoul training grounds, Lu Hanrei was ready to begin a new day of training. Since Blog is joining today, we'll start by reviewing the squat. Blog looked completely lost. "What is a squat?" Lu Hanrei instantly gave him a warm smile. "It's fine if you don't know. Come here, I'll teach you." The squat is the foundation of stable load-bearing and the best movement for strengthening the quadriceps. As he spoke, he placed a hand on Blog's shoulder. "Try squatting down." Blog trembled as he lowered himself. He stared blankly. "What's the point of doing this?" "Simple," Lu Hanrei explained patiently. "You squat and stand back up. We train while lifting weights, so your posture must stay steady to avoid injuries. Feet open to hip width, knees aligned with your toes. Use your hips and knees to descend. Then drive through your legs and hips to stand back up." Blog followed the motions once, and Lu Hanrei immediately gave a thumbs up. "For your first attempt, that's impressive. What did you train before?" Blog blushed. "Just a little swordsmanship." "Then try another squat." Lu Hanrei picked up the barbell. "Keep your core tight. Can you lift your hands to your traps?" "I'm placing the bar. Hold it steady. This thing isn't light." Blog barely nodded before the barbell dropped onto his shoulders. The weight was like a mountain, draining all color from his face as he nearly buckled. "Don't break form. Rise slowly," Lu Hanrei called out in time. Blog clenched his teeth, face red as fire, using every ounce of strength to stand up. Lu Hanrei took the barbell from him immediately, and the surrounding ghouls erupted into cheering and applause. "Not bad at all. No wonder you practice swordsmanship. You're way stronger than the rest of us." Lu Hanrei looked at Blog with clear satisfaction. His strength had already reached its limit, yet he still kept perfect form. Definitely great material for strength training. "My judgment is flawless." He then turned to Blog. "You're training with me because you want to be as strong as your friends, right?" Blog clenched his fists, eyes burning. I want to become as strong as they are. But Lu Hanrate sighed softly. Unfortunately, you can't become like them. The light in Blog's eyes dimmed instantly. So, everyone thinks that too? I know I'm just an ordinary guy. No matter how hard I work, I can't keep up with geniuses. But still, thank you for training me. Before he finished, Lu Hanrate cut him off. What I mean is, you'll become stronger in a different field. Strong enough that you'll never envy their swordsmanship again. In my eyes, you have the best talent. Blog jerked his head up, tears welling instantly. Then he burst into sobs. You're the first one besides my friends who believes in me. Lu Hanrate patted his shoulder. Stop crying. Crying burns muscle. And without Lu Hanrate noticing, his Hawkeye skill quietly advanced to level 3. Early the next morning, Lu Hanrate carried in a pile of Gugu Chick chicks. His explanation was simple. We can't rely on hunting forever. The chicken breast on this mountain will run out eventually. While food is still available, let's try self-sufficiency. The old Ghoul King watched the chirping chicks nervously. Gugu chickens grow fast and aren't hard to raise. But in Ali Mine, there aren't many monsters that can beat them. We're stronger than them now. But if they evolve someday, no one except Lord Lu Hanrate can stop them. Lu Hanrate's gaze turned cold instantly. Can't do it? The old Ghoul King swallowed hard. Am I supposed to be able to do it? But seeing Lu Hanrate's face, clearly saying, say no and you die, he trembled and replied, I can do it. Lu Hanrate burst out laughing. That's the spirit. Why give up on yourself? I almost lost faith in you. Soon, the training grounds echoed again with shouts as everyone gathered around the barbell, focusing on the power of their quadriceps. The old Ghoul King stood beside Blog, using his skill to adjust the weight for him. Lu Hanrate watched the scene, a satisfied smile on his face. Teaching beginners was truly a joy. Suddenly, a thunderous boom shattered the calm of the training grounds. The shockwave sent nearby ghouls flying, tumbling all over the place. What the? Barbells can explode? The old Ghoul King was equally confused. Never heard of that. At that moment, a figure stepped in front of him. Her icy eyes locked onto him. So you're the monster who randomly stole my disciple? The old Ghoul King broke into a cold sweat, waving frantically. Misunderstanding. Total misunderstanding. I'm the one who got replaced. The general impatiently cut him off. Less nonsense. Just answer, yes or no. Before he could react, her sword slashed down with a fierce gust. Boom. Dust erupted, carving a deep trench where he once stood. But instead of delight, irritation spread across the general's face, because her sword had been stopped by a single hand. Lu Hanrate blocked the strike with one arm, his expression dark. Even stray dogs don't dare interrupt my training. You've got guts. Both hearts shook violently. The general was shocked a demi-human could block her sword with flesh and bone. Lu Hanrate stared at the thin line of blood on his arm, stunned. This Annie's got some skill. She actually made me bleed. Just as they stood locked in place, two urgent voices called out behind her. Master, he's the one who took Blog. Raphael and his companion Handard looked at Blog in the distance, tears streaming instantly. Without Blog, they had lost their appetite, couldn't sleep, and lived in misery. The general glanced at Blog, then at Lu Hanrate, and quickly explained everything that had happened. Lu Hanrate raised an eyebrow at Blog. She's really your master? So you already have a coach? That won't do. Blog stuttered, unable to form a full sentence. I just felt that. That fitness is more interesting than swordsmanship, right? Lu Hanrate cut him off. To say it honestly, nothing to be ashamed of. Blog took a deep breath, as if making a huge decision. He bowed deeply to the general. Master, I'm sorry. I like fitness more than swordsmanship now. Sorry for making you come all this way, but I have a new master. The general listened calmly, then suddenly smiled. A moment later, her aura surged again. Since my disciple made a wrong choice, as his master, I must correct it. She flashed forward, unleashing her ultimate technique. Monk draws the sword. Lu Hanrate's eyes sharpened. He instantly switched into a bodybuilding stance. Muscles swelled, veins bulged. The next second, the general's sword slammed onto his arm. She expected victory, but her pupils contracted in shock. The blade left only a scratch. A body this strong should not exist. She turned to Blog. You want your body to become like this? Blog nodded hard, admiration shining in his eyes. The general sighed helplessly. Fine, then I'll fight you. Whoever wins gets the right to take Blog. That means their training method is superior. But Lu Hanrei shook his head. Auntie, you don't understand. Fitness isn't martial arts. It's a way of burning and refining one's character. She countered, then catching that cockatrice. Wasn't that for battle? Lu Hanrei replied calmly. That was survival. For protein. I fight only to survive. The general sneered. So fitness is just a useless training method? Those words instantly ignited Lu Hanrei's anger. She waved dismissively. I know you're mad, but hold it. What's the use of burning and challenging yourself? To put plainly, fitness is just trash. The moment her words fell, a blinding light erupted from Lu Hanrei's body. From within the light emerged a taller, stronger figure. Muscles sharp as carved steel, every inch radiating explosive power. The pressure alone made everyone hold their breath. His eyes were sharp as a hawk. I'll show you what true fitness means. System prompt. Combat mode activated. Muscular physique and tall form enabled. The ghouls form a row, quietly eating melon. Who do you think is stronger, Lord Lu Hanrei or that human woman? One ghoul scoffed. Can't you see their size difference? For Lord Lu Hanrei, that woman doesn't even count as an opponent. But Blog interrupted, his face deadly serious. My master is one of the top 10 powerhouses on this continent. You can't judge her by size alone. Meanwhile, Lu Hanrei stared at the numbers shown by Hawkeye, confused. Weight 67.2, skeletal muscle 32.7, body fat 9.2, body fat rate 13.6%. With muscle that low, how did she manage to injure me? Before he could figure it out, the general's voice came again. Tell me, what kind of martial arts can your fitness training produce? But before Lu Hanrei could answer, the space around her suddenly twisted violently. In the next second, she appeared above him, launching a fierce assault. Lu Hanrei blocked every strike with his arms, making the general secretly marvel. What monstrous strength. But her attacks didn't stop. She kept pressing forward. Subhuman, as your predecessor in humanity, I have a few words of advice. She spoke while attacking, leaving Lu Hanrei speechless. Who talks this much during a fight? Do you know why? Even though your body looks so human, I still call you subhuman? Lu Hanrei replied flatly, not curious. He swung a massive, sandbag-sized punch toward her, but the general dodged mid-air. Her voice echoed from above, because red mana is rising around you. She twisted in the air. The closer one is to the demon race, the redder the mana becomes. In your combat style, humans don't have the ability to morph their bodies. With that, she dove toward him again. Her impact shattered the ground instantly, but Lu Hanrei dodged using his signature move, upward leg press machine. In the next moment, he rolled in midair and landed steadily. His face was filled with anger. Bodies change through effort. You don't even know that basic fact? The general shook her head. Only beings like you can use such skills. Humans rely on swordsmanship and mana. Then her aura exploded once more. Secret technique, forest of blades. With that, she slid her sword back into its sheath. But the moment it clicked into place, countless blades materialized around Lu Hanrei, sending cold sweat down his spine. The general's voice echoed again. Humans replenish whatever strength they lack before a duel. As soon as she finished, countless sword shadows rushed toward Lu Hanrei. Facing such dense attacks, he couldn't dodge at all. Teaching fitness is pointless. Now do you understand what I meant earlier? To humans, training the body is trash. Even if you calculate how to beat me, you'll never surpass someone who studies swordsmanship every day. The general looked at the fallen Lu Hanrei as if he were garbage. Lu Hanrei lay on the ground and slowly pushed himself up. Do your opponents never improve? Do you know how much stronger the person you fight today will be tomorrow? The general smirked coldly. Why worry about that? Since I met him today, I won't let him see tomorrow's sun. Her aura surged again, activating her sword art, Forest of Blades. In the next second, Lu Hanrei leapt up, his muscles swelling instantly. He had activated bodybuilding pose, front double biceps. The general's attacks followed, but Lu Hanrei's face showed pure defiance. For those who train their bodies, no matter the place or time, we always defeat the version of ourselves from yesterday. Then he unleashed his secret technique, 10 reps, meaning a 10-count training set. As soon as he used it, his physique kept expanding, growing larger and larger. Now it's my turn to teach you, old lady. Meanwhile, on Blog's side, Raphael and Handert arrived. Their faces were filled with hesitation and embarrassment. They had only wanted to see Blog sooner, so they brought their master along, never expecting things to escalate like this. Finding you like this, you must think we're idiots, right? Blog stared blankly. Why would I ever hate you for that? But Raphael and Handert insisted. They pressured him, forcing him to leave them. Blog shook his head. No, came here because I wanted to learn fitness. When I'm done, I'll go back. Lord Lu Hanrate agreed already. Hearing this, the two instantly revived, leaving Blog confused. Does sword training help change facial expressions? But they didn't care what he thought and asked what kind of training he was learning. Handert also said he wanted to try fitness. Blog shook his head. He was still new. Then he looked toward the old Ghoul King. Can you help me? The old Ghoul King nodded immediately. I can probably. Blog smiled brightly and asked the two, do you remember what our master said was the most important thing when we first learned swordsmanship? Raphael raised his arm at once. Lower body strength. Correct. And the exercise we're learning now also relies on the lower body, specifically this part, the squat, which trains the quadriceps. Lord Lu Hanrate said to begin with safe, simple form, but to make it more fun, Blog added more weight to the barbell. The old Ghoul King panicked. Starting with that much weight? Are you two really brothers close enough to share one diaper? But Brolog simply smiled like he was watching a show, saying it was fine. He would support them from behind. Meanwhile, on Lu Hanshuai's side, the general was enduring his punches one after another. Each strike carried a steady rhythm. And more importantly, Lu Hanshuai counted out loud with every punch. 1, 2, 3, 4. This made the general furious. If you want to hit me, then hit me. Why are you warning me? Why are you holding back? But Lu Hanshuai shook his head, saying he wasn't holding back at all. Just as the general was about to continue scolding him, the voices of Raphael and Handade came from the side. The general looked over in confusion, and in the next moment, her face flushed red. Raphael and Handade had taken off their shirts, revealing their upper body muscles completely. The sight made the anti-warrior both embarrassed and excited. She wanted to look away, but simply couldn't. What kind of training is that? And why is it so pleasing to the eyes? The old Ghost King answered, that's failure squats. It's a training movement in fitness, but doing it like that will get them injured. At this moment, the general no longer had her previous arrogance. I think fitness can be added to my training routine. Hearing this, Lu Hanshuai exited battle mode, but still voiced his curiosity. So in your eyes, what exactly is fitness? The general replied, of course it's burning, sticky passion, and watching people drenched in sweat, actually enjoying themselves. And so, the two reached a mutual understanding through fitness. Soon, everyone set out on their journey toward the White Nation. Lu Hanshuai's eyes, however, were drawn to the muscles on the general's forearm. Your forearm is so strong. What exercise do you do for it? The general said she didn't train it intentionally. She simply swung her sword every day, which also counted as exercise. But I have a question for you. You teach such powerful training methods to others and expect nothing in return? Are you really okay with that? Lu Hanshuai waved his hand, saying it was absolutely fine. The more people doing fitness, the better. This comment left the general puzzled. Normally, when people have something good, they hide it, afraid others will learn it. But Lu Hanshuai looked completely unconcerned. The more people who work out, the more gyms there will be everywhere. And if people research more types of exercises, training becomes even more efficient. If he ever had the chance, he hoped to bring the culture of fitness into Renicia as well. The general thought for a moment. It seems you're even more interesting than I imagined. I admire you. When we meet the Count later, I'll ask him to grant you a wish. The road to the White Nation was long. After night fell, the group set up a temporary camp nearby. At that moment, Brolog approached Lu Hanshuai with a serious expression. Lord Lu Hanshuai, there's something you may not know. The White Nation has extremely severe discrimination. People there not only look down on other races, but even on mages and non-believers. They're only friendly to their own kind, especially sword users. Young people like me are a bit better, but I'm afraid you and the ghoul athletes might feel uncomfortable there. Lu Hanshui nodded. This was indeed a major problem. Brolog suggested waiting a while before visiting. But Lu Hanshui ignored him completely and walked straight toward a nearby feeding trough. In the next moment, he started competing with the horse for food, shoveling the feed into his mouth. Everyone around was shocked. Truly an uncivilized child, eating feed meant for livestock. But Lu Hanshui looked truly moved, as if tasting something exquisite. That rough, dry texture. This was the raw form of oatmeal. Oats. Such clean carbohydrates being eaten only by horses. Now, that was a real problem. People from the White Nation watched him eat with delight and were shocked again. Monsters really were monsters. Even their eating habits had no standards. If a monster heard that, he'd be sad. The Ghoul King walked over and scolded the two. He then took out his own food. I improved your rations a bit. Try it. Seeing the food handed over by the monster, the two were completely unwilling, but they still couldn't resist the smell. The next moment, they took a bite and slowly chewed. Then both of them froze in shock. A sweet flavor mixed with a pleasantly spicy burn spread through their mouths, and the cooked aroma stirred something deep inside their hearts. That familiar taste was the taste of their mother's cooking. The two immediately gave the Ghoul King a thumbs up. The Ghoul King replied proudly, saying that once they were closer, he would share the recipe, so they should stop saying discriminatory things about monsters. At that moment, Lu Hanshui approached General Li Wen, who curiously asked what he needed. Do you remember saying earlier that you would help me fulfill one wish? General Li Wen nodded. Lu Hanshui opened his palm, revealing a small handful of feed. I've decided. I want this grain. General Li Wen didn't find it strange. I saw you raising goo-goo chickens earlier. Is this for feeding them? Of course not. It's for us to eat. General Li Wen broke out in a cold sweat. Even if that's your request, having me give you livestock feed to eat feels kind of embarrassing. That's right, Lord Lu Hanshui. The Ghoul Squad captain walked over. She's a woman of high status. How can such a great reward be wasted on the feed of livestock? Hearing this, Lu Hanshui grew visibly annoyed. General Li Wen added, they're not wrong. Whatever request you make, I'll grant it. This level of treatment isn't for just anyone. I can replace your tents with log houses, and I can dress you in well-fitted, handsome adventure outfits. And our supplies already have plenty of goo-goo chicken breast. Isn't that your favorite protein? Lu Hanshui rubbed his temples. Looks like I need to educate you a bit. Eating only protein is actually harmful, especially for the liver. But if you take in the right amount of carbohydrates, your body produces glycogen, which helps your muscles unleash explosive power. Oats, as complex carbs, digest slowly and keep you full for longer. They're low-calorie and nutrient-dense, and back on Earth they were even called the king of grains. So tell me, what reward could possibly be better for the body than oats? Hearing this, General Li Wen's group fell silent, completely unable to understand a word he was saying. But the ghouls were trembling with excitement. So it's like that. From now on, we're eating oats. We want muscles, exaggerated muscles. This entire scene fell into the eyes of the surrounding White Nation soldiers. They clenched their teeth. So this is the secret that lets that demi-human fight, General Li Wen. I can't stand the idea of humans losing to monsters. Let's eat it too. The moment Lu Hanshui finished speaking, Brog took a huge gulp of the feed. Handater and Raphael swallowed hard behind him. Even Brog is eating it. Let's try it too. And in the next second, a crowd gathered around the feed trough. Ghouls who looked like starving ghosts revived, soldiers who refused to lose to monsters, and of course the horse, who was eating peacefully before being interrupted and now looked completely confused. But the moment the food touched their tongues, everyone spat it out. This is disgusting. Raphael swore he had never tasted anything so awful in his entire life. But while wiping his mouth, his eyes were drawn to Brog opposite him. Brog was still chewing mouthful after mouthful of the grain. Brog, spit it out. Even the ghouls threw it up. This stuff tastes terrible. But Brog smiled brightly. I think it tastes fine. Dry, crunchy. I kind of like it. Lu Hanshui took in the whole scene. He didn't expect Brog to have talent, even in eating. He must be someone who will bulk up fast, which somehow made Lu Hanshui feel challenged. At that moment, General Li Wen walked over. She still didn't understand a single word of Lu Hanshui's explanation earlier. But seeing how satisfied you all look, I'll actively persuade the Earl to grant your request. Hearing this, Lu Hanshui brightened. General Li Wen, you're really a good person. The next day, Lu Hanshui's group soon arrived at the White Nation. Throughout the journey, Brog wore a heavy expression. Lord Lu Hanshui, like I told you yesterday, this is the White Nation, the land most obsessed with discrimination on the entire continent. As soon as they entered the gates, the ghouls were surrounded and stared at like circus animals. The White Nation citizens' chatter kept drilling into the ghoul squad captain's ears, irritating him endlessly. At that moment, Lu Hanshui placed a large hand on his shoulder. Why are you stunned? Show them a few poses. What do you mean? The captain asked, completely lost. Lu Hanshui explained. It's because your physiques are amazing. That's why they're staring. The ghouls suddenly understood. Ah, so that's why? Brog off to the side was speechless. It's definitely not that. The next moment, the ghouls took a deep breath, then proudly flexed their exaggerated pectoral muscles toward the White Nation crowd. The White Nation citizens were utterly dumbfounded. They had absolutely no idea why these monsters were so happy. Soon, they arrived at the palace. General Li Wen had already reported everything. The White Nation Earl, seated high above, asked coldly, so your plan is to leave after teaching fitness, correct? Lu Hanshui nodded. And your payment is livestock feed? Lu Hanshui nodded again, stood up, and said it's not livestock feed. It's oats, edible oat flakes. But to the Earl, the scene looked extremely rude. Such a lowly race. I only allowed you monsters into the city out of respect for the general. If she hadn't begged me, I would have kept the guards at the gate. General Li Wen immediately bowed to thank the Earl for his generosity. The next moment, the Earl's furious roar filled the hall. So you'd better behave yourselves. Don't stir up trouble. Once you finish teaching that so-called fitness, get out of my city. Lu Hanshui clenched his fist. No problem, Earl. After you're done with work, you can come train with me too. I'll coach you personally. But the Earl ignored him completely and waved for the two to leave. Once they were gone, the Earl's face twisted with anger. These people are getting out of hand. The next moment, he slumped down onto his throne. General Li Wen's popularity is far too strong. I was just worrying about how to regain the people's trust. Truly heaven's blessing. I've been struggling for so long, yet the answer falls into my lap. Guards, summon the Goo Goo Mercenary Corps. General Li Wen, your invited guests have accidentally become your weakness today. Soon, General Li Wen brought Lu Hanshui to the soldiers' training grounds. Everyone stop. Today we're having a special training session. This is the special instructor invited by General Li Wen, the Ghoul King, Lu Hanshui. The soldiers were stunned. Ghoul King? Isn't that a monster? Why is a monster teaching us? I know you're unhappy, but refusing orders is violating military law. Think carefully before acting. Lu Hanshui stepped forward. Hello, everyone. I'm your special fitness instructor. My name is Lu Hanshui, but I'm not satisfied with your eyes. Everyone push up position now. The soldiers froze. Push up? What's that? Lu Hanshui dropped to the ground. You brats, all of you get down. The ghouls instantly dropped behind him without hesitation. Many White Nation soldiers hesitated, though a few slowly lowered themselves. Seeing this, Lu Hanshui's face darkened. Why aren't you down yet? What are you waiting for? Someone snorted. What a joke. Are we seriously obeying a monster? The instructor immediately replied, during training, a monster's command is equivalent to the general's command. That's the rule here. But the man waved his hand dismissively. Instructor, you think so too? Do you really believe that monsters' words are the same as the general's? Hearing this, the general fell silent. Seeing that, the man shouted to those beside him, everyone, get up. Are you really going to obey a monster? Do you have no human pride at all? Lu Hanshui also stood up, annoyance written all over his face, asking what the man thought he was doing. The man waved casually. There are too many problems. We won't follow orders from a monster. Second, the fitness you teach is useless. Why should we abandon practical swordsmanship to learn some other training? As he spoke, his hand rested on his sword hilt. The next moment, he drew his sword. Third, and most important, we humans will not bow to an uneducated monster. Afraid Lu Hanshui would explode, the old Ghoul King stepped forward to block him. I can handle this. He pointed toward Blog. First problem, let Blog train you instead. Then you'll be listening to a human instructor, not a monster. Second, You've never learned fitness. How do you know it's worse than swordsmanship? Let monsters and humans each send a representative and fight. How about that? And third, whether we are uneducated monsters, the old Ghoul King's expression grew cold. You'll only know after the fight, you filthy humans. He then looked back at the ghouls. Everyone ready? At once, the ghouls shouted their uniform battle cry. Seeing this, Lu Shui felt relieved. These guys really didn't let me down. Good. I accept your proposal. Instructor, do you agree as well? Hearing this, the instructor finally nodded. Once he nodded, the man immediately stepped forward. I'll represent the humans. Which monster will you send out? As soon as he finished, a ghoul strode out. The man was secretly delighted. These idiots still think I'm just an apprentice? Pathetic. Let me show you why the Gugu Mercenary Corps, personally hired by the Earl, is feared across the land. The next instant, he stomped hard on the ground, then leapt at the ghoul. Die, you filthy monster. But the ghoul didn't panic at all, bending his arm and unleashing the martial arts ultimate, the one-armed dumbbell front press. A loud boom followed as the man boldly used his face to catch the punch. The next moment, he was launched straight into the sky by the impact. When he hit the ground, his face barely resembled a human shape. Lu Shui scolded the ghoul. You used too much force. Did you bulk up just to show off? What if you killed him? The ghoul meekly replied with a soft sorry. Hearing that, Lu Shui waved his hand awkwardly. It's not entirely your fault. I didn't expect him to be this brave, yet this trash. Then Lu Shui walked toward the White Nation soldiers. Since your representative lost, follow my training obediently. At that moment, the supposedly unconscious man curled his lips. Sword technique. As soon as he spoke, powerful energy burst from his body, and the wind around him roared. The next instant, he dashed forward, his long sword slashing straight toward the ghoul in front of him. The ghoul sensed danger, turned back in panic, and completely forgot to dodge. At that critical moment, the old Ghoul King activated tenfold heavy impact. The man was instantly smashed to the ground, unable to move. Lu Shui immediately flashed forward. His palm pressed lightly toward the man's chest. At the exact moment his palm touched the chest, the man shot out like a cannonball. He slammed in the wall from Lu Shui's seemingly gentle strike. The massive impact made his whole body twitch uncontrollably. At that moment, General Li Wen arrived at the edge of the training grounds. She entered excitedly, wondering how Lu Shui's training was going and how many chest muscles she would get to see. But all she saw were neatly dressed soldiers staring forward, whispering noisily. The scene earlier had terrified them. To display such power with pure strength, they were sure magic must have been used mid-battle. In the next moment, General Li Wen thrust her sword into the ground, the loud impact instantly drawing everyone's attention. The instructor and Lu Shui rushed over as soon as they saw her. General Li Wen looked at the instructor with displeasure. I don't understand what's happening. Report to me. The instructor straightened up immediately. Some trainees believed they shouldn't follow a monster's orders, so both sides sent representatives to duel. Our soldier lost the match, and some accused the ghouls of cheating, using magic during the duel. Hearing this, General Li Wen turned to Lu Shui. You didn't use magic in the duel, right? Lu Shui shook his head. I don't even know magic. General Li Wen shifted her gaze back to the instructor. Lu Shui said he didn't. Cold sweat ran down the instructor's face. Actually, I also think he didn't use magic, but before he finished, someone interrupted him. The Earl had arrived. I happened to pass by and heard something unbelievable. General, do you actually believe what those monsters say? Shouldn't you stand with the people of the White Nation? Or do you intend to stand with those inferior creatures? General Li Wen broke into a cold sweat. Of course I stand with the people of the White Nation, but the Earl's expression grew colder. Yet you choose to believe a monster's nonsense? At that moment, Lu Shui stepped forward. Are you here for your coaching session? Come down from that horse first. Before he could get close, the old Ghoul King dragged him back. Lu Shui, you misunderstood. Come stand behind me. After Lu Shui stepped back, the Earl again looked at General Li Wen. You know I value you greatly, right? General Li Wen nodded. I understand. The Earl's face chilled once more. But the guests you brought have caused trouble for our nation, harming the trainees' young bodies and minds. and creating conflict and chaos. As the ruler of this land, I cannot overlook this. His gaze hardened. I hereby declare that General Li Wen will bear full responsibility. You are sentenced to 2 years of exile. Hearing this, General Li Wen's expression instantly turned icy. The Earl was terrified by her reaction. She won't try to kill me, right? So scary. At that moment, countless voices rose behind General Li Wen. Earl, you can't do this. Let us execute those monsters instead. Please take back your order. The noise poured into her ears. The next moment, she smiled. She turned toward the crowd. All of you, be quiet. You dare go against the Earl's command? Are you still worthy of being soldiers who protect this nation? But the soldiers still looked dissatisfied. We would never disobey the Earl, but doing this to the general is really... Before he could finish, General Li Wen cut him off. I thought you were just brats who only knew how to discriminate, but you even dare talk back to the Earl. Seems you've grown a little, but my support must be removed. Only then can seedlings grow on their own. Then she turned to the Earl and bowed. Thank you, my lord. Then I will take your leniency as an excuse to rest and recover before returning to the nation. The Earl nodded expressionlessly, though inside he trembled. Her glare just now nearly scared the life out of him. She then looked toward Lu Hanshui. Sorry, Hanshui. I brought you here, yet I can't stay to look after you till the end. Lu Hanshui smiled. It's fine. We can't always train strictly by the schedule anyway. General Li Wen then turned again to the Earl. May these monsters continue teaching for the planned 3 months? The Earl nodded. This I will honor. Hearing that, General Li Wen finally relaxed. Good. At least the basic foundation is set. With so many unpredictable variables, what kind of change will these seedlings experience? I'm curious. It'll be fascinating once I return. Thinking of this, she suddenly burst into loud laughter. The soldiers were stunned. Had the general gone mad for being exiled? Night soon arrived. Outside the walls of the White Nation, a lone figure appeared. It was the Goo mercenary who had provoked the ghouls earlier, now walking with a relaxed smile. If jobs like this happen more often, I won't need to hunt goblins anymore. Since Belle likes flowers, maybe I should open a flower shop? The thought made him blush, imagining some sweet future. He then opened the pocket watch in his hand. Wife, daughter, wait for me a little longer. Daddy will be home soon. But the man had no idea his wife and daughter would never wait for him again. The blazing fire had already swallowed the entire village. The villagers lucky enough not to burn to death had turned into zombie-like husks, while the flames continued attacking the few survivors. The entire scene was reflected in the eyes of the man standing atop the mountain. As he watched, a sick, twisted smile crept across his face. Then he turned around, expression shifting to delighted surprise. Long time no see, Elijah. Look, our homeland is greeting us with such warmth. His twisted smile returned, even darker than before. Yet in the next instant, he returned to a polite facade, extending his hand like a gentleman. My princess, may I have this dance? The girl named Elijah stared at him in silence for a moment. Then she placed her hand into his. At the cliff's edge, 2 figures began to dance, their graceful song drifting down into the inferno below, an elegant melody falling into a blazing hell. Just moments ago, the Count ordered Lewin general exiled for 2 years. In the blink of an eye, she was escorted out of the city gates. Her disciples showed up to send her off, which actually made her quite happy. At least her care for those brats wasn't wasted. Then she looked at Brolog beside her, puzzled. Why was he here too? Brolog quickly explained that since Lord Lu Hanshui didn't have class today, he planned to go outside the city to gather some materials, and figured he could escort her part of the way. Hearing this, Lewin nodded thoughtfully. In that case, she might as well go home for a bit. But Brolog hesitated. Would the Count really allow such a thing? Lewin waved it off. As long as that old geezer doesn't find out, everything's fine. As expected of my master. Your mind really works fast. Then I'll trust you, master. Brolog's voice had indeed grown louder lately. Lewin even patted his arm, noticing it had gotten sturdier too. If you get any stronger, you could probably take me home as your wife. Brolog broke into a cold sweat. Master, aren't you already over 60? I just turned 20. Isn't this a little too much? The next second, Lewin exploded with fury. Raphael and Handard rushed in to shield Brolog. allowing him to run away at full speed. Meanwhile, a lone slime crawled stealthily across the ground, clueless about its soon-to-come fate. A ghoul suddenly appeared behind it, shocking the slime into a shiver. The ghoul's arm muscles swelled instantly. In the next moment, it scooped the slime into its chest as if trying to absorb it into its own body. A helpless wail drifted through the air. Soon, another ghoul arrived holding yet another slime. This trip was clearly a huge success. Their faces were full of satisfied smiles. Every time Lord Luhan Shuai makes those strange things we don't understand, it's to teach us new moves. Let's hurry back. Just then, Luan arrived with her group. She stared at the slime in the ghoul's arms, confused. Why are you running out here to catch slimes? Hearing Luan's question, the ghoul gave her a "Are you serious?" Look, of course they caught slimes because they needed slimes. Luan grew even more confused. Slimes were practically the most useless creatures. What do they possibly be for? But the ghoul didn't know what Lord Lu Hanshui planned to do either, so it suggested Lu in general ask him directly. Soon, the two arrived where Lu Hanshui was. When Lu Hanshui saw Brolog walking over, he was happy, but also puzzled. Why was this kid strolling over casually? Why wasn't he using archer stance footwork? Meanwhile, the ghouls around them were flexing their pecs, surrounding the slimes in a tight circle. Luin stared at the scene, baffled. What exactly are you planning to do with these slimes? Lu Hanshui explained that he had been observing the trainees recently and noticed their bodybuilding and strength training efficiency was too low. In this situation, the only effective method was using the ETS system for assistance. But training equipment was too scarce, so he was making his own. Luin suddenly felt enlightened. Ah, like how we make straw dummies for sword training, right? Lu Hanshui shook his head. It's not like sword practice. Then he looked at the ghouls behind him. Bring me a slime. Soon, a slime was carried over and placed before him. In the next moment, Lu Hanshui shoved his hand straight into the slime's soft body without hesitation, instantly pulling out the stone core inside it. Even if you remove the round core in the center, a slime regenerates in a few days. But while the regeneration point is gone, holes form in the middle. Lu Hanshui then punched hard into one of those holes. Slimes had incredibly strong elasticity and contraction force. We need to use their high contraction force. Before they fully shrink, we put our hands inside to shape them. Once the shape sets, the resistance band is complete. It might sound strange, Luin, but resistance bands can actually train many different muscle groups. The resistance levels change according to color, so you can match each band to the needed strength. They're good for rehab, warm-ups, everything. Very versatile. Just then, as Lu Hanshui was talking excitedly, Luin interrupted him. When he looked at her, Luin apologized for the interruption, but waved her hand again. The truth is, I never understood you. So I always suspected your passion for training and your kindness were all an act. But you always greet us with genuine warmth. As an educator, yet letting White Nation be filled with discrimination. I feel like I failed, and I'm ashamed. So all this time, I just blindly followed the Count's reckless orders. But you're different from me. You can bring change to this country. Hearing the key word, Lu Hanshui's eyes narrowed. Change. In the next second, he puffed out his exaggerated pecs proudly. I'm best at making changes. I can change myself, but the whole team. Luin waved her hand. Not that kind of change. I mean this kind. As she spoke, White Nation soldiers stepped forward. Their earlier disdain had vanished. Smiling at the ghouls, they said, Monster Instructor, let's hear what you've got. And no, it's not because we lost, okay? But please don't make us do those weird push-up things. General Luin turned to him. Lu Hanshui, can I entrust all my trainees to you? Lu Hanshui broke into a cold sweat. But a moment later, he clenched his fist. Of course. Welcome to the team, new members. Scene shifts. After receiving the report, the Count rode swiftly toward the burning village. He ordered everyone to dismount and began giving mission instructions. Our enemies are zombies. They don't die. The scariest thing about them, if you get bitten, you become one. So don't get bitten. Watch every corner. Then he raised his sword. All troops advance. The command fell, and countless soldiers rushed into the sea of flames. Soon, fierce combat with zombies broke out. Watched from the shadows by the hidden mastermind. The man gestured impatiently to Bedolman. We wait here. If we show up now, General Luin might join the battle. Bedolman growled and barked restlessly around him. The man grew irritated. A second later, he kicked Bedolman away. I said, "No, you stupid mutt." The abused Bedolman cried twice in grievance, but stood back up unharmed and walked toward the man again. The man sighed, gently patting its head. "Just wait a little more, Bedolman. Those zombies are nothing but expendable pieces." Back at the White Nation training grounds, Lu Hanshui nodded in satisfaction at the soldiers. As I said before, everyone has limited stamina each month, so you must train only the muscles you truly need. After he finished, the instructor stepped forward. Everyone understood. Warm up with the resistance bands and get ready for bench press. But in the next instant, the instructor's words were interrupted by Lu Hanshui. "Forget the bench press. Today, we're doing mixed training." The instructor was completely confused. Mixed training? What on earth is that? Mixed training is a method built on consistency, variety, high intensity, and functional movements. It trains 6 areas evenly: stamina, strength, explosive power, speed, coordination, and flexibility. In short, a perfect hexagon warrior. With group-based workloads, teammates develop cohesion and also healthy competition. Since we barely know each other now, nothing works better. The old Ghoul King will now announce your groups. After confirming, get fired up and start today's training. As soon as he finished, thunderous cheers erupted. Pecs! Pecs! Soon, the ghouls and White Nation soldiers dove into passionate training. And again, the old Ghoul King served as Lu Hanshui's weight adjuster. Just then, a sudden broadcast interrupted Lu Hanshui's training. He frowned at the instructor. "What's that repeating sound on the radio lately?" "Zombies outside the city," the instructor explained. "The Count has to lead the troops himself. When the enemy is too strong, they send constant signals requesting reinforcements." But even though he asked, Lu Hanshui barely seemed to listen. "Group 4, that's you. Your core is weak. Lower the weight." The scene cuts to the Count's side. At this moment, the Count had already led his troops to the enemy's main base. "This time, we wipe them out completely and reclaim our nation's peace." His words triggered roaring cheers across the battlefield. With the momentum high, the Count raised his longsword again. Full assault, the soldiers charged into the zombie horde without hesitation. Today, they would reclaim peace for their homeland. The Count watched with satisfaction until his secretary asked, "Isn't this too aggressive?" "What do you know?" The Count snapped. "Zombies have devolved. No strategy, no technique. Use strength and wits, and they'll be wiped out easily." Watching his troops fighting fiercely down the slope, the Count issued another command. "No one slows down. Keep fighting until every one of them is gone." Meanwhile, another squad pushed into the rear of the zombie horde. The man surrounded by soldiers didn't panic at all. In fact, he smiled. He snapped his fingers lightly. In the next instant, Bedolman dropped from the sky, landing in front of everyone. Lord Ban stroked Bedolman's head with an evil grin. Then he pointed at the soldiers charging toward him. "Go bite them to death." Bedolman lunged toward the soldiers the moment he finished speaking. In just an instant, the soldiers surrounding Lord Ban were wiped out completely. Right then, someone arrived holding a glowing sword. It was the Count. His face was filled with rage as he swung his blade at Ban. Ban looked at him and smiled. "Long time no see, Count." He casually pulled a staff from his waist, blocking the furious strike with ease. "What's wrong? Didn't eat enough?" That strike was pathetic. The Count wasn't angered. "Your mouth is still the same. Just like before, you still can't use sword techniques." With a flick, the Count knocked Ban's staff aside. Ban stepped back smoothly. "I never studied sword techniques, so of course I can't use them." Then he pulled out several vials from between his legs. "But I have studied these." As soon as he finished speaking, Ban drove a thick, long, hard, poison-coated needle into his own small body. In a blink, his physique began to mutate. Watching Ban rapidly swell before his eyes, the Count was filled with terror. Even though he didn't want to believe it, Ban's expanding body made his heart sink. "You lunatic! You actually took part in human experiments?" Ban's smiling face was the only answer he gave.